square footage, depending on your design of the house, you can engineer like.
Yeah, it's okay.
When Campfire Restoration Project first did its GREYWATER workshop, I was a little envious because we have been just sending the water out to the septic. And so I wanted to be sure and know about a GREYWATER system so that we could possibly put one in at one point. And then so we were very, very happy to be able to have a GREYWATER system installed so soon so that we could take our water and just use it for good stuff instead of just throwing it into the septic. Now we can use it to water our landscape, not have to put good water on the plants that are out there. And in this period of time when we've had like 100-degree plus weather for the last 2-3 weeks now, we've had to water everything else on the property. But the trees that this GREYWATER system is going out to have not had to be watered, and they're still green and lush. And so it's doing a really good job. It's doing its work.
Yeah, we're running out of help.
Don't say that.
Plant those seeds when the rain fall down, dripping down your face, falling on the ground where the onions grow. Taters in the ground, color of the rainbow. Hey, oh, everybody go out to the garden, feed your soul. Hey, oh, everybody go out to the garden and feed your soul. Hey, oh, everybody go out to the garden and feed your soul. Hey, oh, everybody go out to the garden and feed your soul.
For quite a few years, it's been kind of hard to get like the building departments and the health departments on board about this. But laws have changed in California, so now you can do this. You can do simple and maybe a little bit more complex GREYWATER systems.
We're here at the home of Susan Dobra and John Michelson, who have volunteered to let us install a GREYWATER system for their washing machine. Hi, how are you?
Janel.
Hi, my name is Janel Luke. I'm here with the Campfire Restoration Project, and we're going to talk to you today about installing GREYWATER systems in Butte County, California.
So here we are, the washer and the dryer. And so anyway, this is where the water comes out and goes down.
Okay, so the pipe's
it's
inside
going straight,
the wall.
yeah, and it goes straight down, and then it probably heads out to the septic, which is right outside.
Okay. GREYWATER is defined by the state of California as water disposed of from your home from bathroom sinks, showers and bathtubs, and laundry washing machines. Not included are going to be dishwashing machines, kitchen sinks, and toilets, which are still considered black water. However, every county in California and every municipality is probably going to have their own codes that refer to proper legal ways to dispose of GREYWATER. Depending on where you're located, you may have to get permits. And this is information you should be able to get from your county office. Here in Butte County, you can talk to your town permitting offices, and if you are in unincorporated areas of Butte County, the enforcing agency for GREYWATER disposal is going to be Butte County Environmental Health. I think one of the next questions to talk about is why? Why do we want to save GREYWATER on our property and not put it into our septic or send it away with our sewage system? So I'd really encourage you right now to go and find a monthly water bill for your home. I did this a couple of months ago at my home in Oroville, and I was absolutely astonished at what I found. An average home in a residential area, when you're just taking care of your landscape and your yard and doing your normal activities inside, can use up to 30,000 gallons of water a month. 30,000 gallons of water is an incredible amount, especially when you live in an area where we're stricken by wildfires and fairly severe drought most years. Now, granted, not all of that water is going to constitute gray water that you can dispose of yourself. However, I mean, if you could take into consideration how much laundry you do, how long your showers take, you're probably putting at least half of what's on your water bill back onto your property, which can have huge implications for defensible space. It can save you on your monthly water bill for taking care of your landscaping. And it's just a really great way to save on a resource that is diminishing in our state. Now I want to talk a little bit about some of the tools and materials you're probably going to need to install your system. I'm going to briefly go over some of the things that John Michael used to do his exploratory work cutting through the wall of his house. What you're going to need to dig your trench and your disposal field, the piping and materials you're going to need to run your water into your disposal field, and then also some of the tools to deal with the piping. So for digging your disposal field and your trench, it's really going to depend on where you live and what type of soil you're dealing with. In a lot of cases, you might get away with just a regular spade head shovel and a trenching shovel. The only difference here is the trenching shovels are very narrow, so it's really easy to quickly dig a narrow trench to run your piping to your disposal field. In our case, we're also going to need some kind of pickaxe. Sometimes it can also help to have something like a digging bar if you're not sure what you're going to encounter and if you have really rocky soil around your house. So then some of the things you're going to need when you're doing your site assessment and marking out where you're going to put your lines. You're definitely going to want marking flags. You can get any color you want. I prefer these over marking paint because, well, for obvious reasons, it's not putting paint or chemicals on the ground. And also, I can reuse these multiple times, whereas the paint, it runs out pretty quickly. Another thing that's going to be really important is a level. You can get these in all sorts of sizes, made out of all sorts of different things. And you might even have something as fancy as a laser level. But this is just to make sure that the pipe running away from your house into your disposal field is going to be at a slight angle. You don't want it to be level because that runs a way higher chance of backing water up into your home, and you don't want that. You're going to need some kind of cutting tool that you can use to cut your piping. I have a couple examples here. There's a ratcheting tool that works really great for smaller piping. They do make these for larger piping. Make sure you get the right size based on what type of piping you're going to use. And you can also get little types of hand saws for PVC at most hardware stores. And if you have a whole lot of cutting to do, you might even want to go as far as using a power tool like a Sawzall. These are really fast and great, but definitely make sure you feel comfortable using power tools and know that you don't have to. This is a pretty expensive thing to buy just to cut a couple pieces of pipe. In the back here, I have a few of the tools that John Michael used to drill through the wall. Now, what type of tool and what type of bit or saw blade you use is really just going to depend on what type of wall material you have in your house. If you're not sure what to use, I would consult someone at your local hardware store. You can obviously get tools that have either cords or batteries. You're going to want to think about where your site is and where you're going to be doing the work to choose the right kind of tool. And these nice hole cutting drill bits are really great for making a nice clean hole in your wall that you can fit the pipe to, and you can get the right one for the right size of pipe. So these are some really basic tools. You're also going to want probably a tape measure of some kind. Make sure it's long enough that you can measure all of your setbacks, which we'll be talking about here very shortly when we do our flagging. So some of the materials you're going to need for installing your pipes for your gray water system. We're using 2-inch ABS pipe. ABS is the black pipe that you see. It's similar to PVC. The reason that we're using ABS and not white PVC pipe is because ABS designates wastewater in a home. All of your wastewater coming out of your home is going to be piped out in ABS. So that just means later on, if someone buys your property or if you have a rental property, if they're digging around in the yard, they're going to encounter this and immediately know that it's some kind of wastewater and that they're going to have to investigate where it's coming from. So if you have a really long distance to go, you might want to get a couple straight couplers. This is just to add two pieces of pipe together to make a longer length. You might need couplers that allow you to go in different directions. And there are a couple ways you can go with that. So we have a regular 90-degree elbow. You can get these in all sorts of different angles. They make 60, 22.5, 30. We just need 90, and this keeps it really simple. However, there are also connectors called sweeps. Sweeps are really great because it makes the angle a lot more gentle and longer. So once we get into the main delivery pipe outside of the house that goes to your disposal field, if you ever have to snake a line because you have a clog in it, it's really great to have sweeps because it makes this nice gentle curve that the snake can follow down and you're not having to force it into your pipe. So coming out of your house, there's a part that you absolutely have to have in your gray water system. You want this pretty close to whatever appliance your gray water is coming out of, and it's called a clean out. So you see you have the sweep part here, but you also have this little stub that comes out. So this part is going to be attached to your delivery line. So the washing machine line comes in here, and then this is going to be the delivery line that goes out to our disposal field. And what this allows you to do is you can open this pipe up and you could stick a snake down in here to remount any blockages that you might have. You have to have clean outs on all of your wastewater lines. So one more thing, since our system is really simple, these are pretty much all the components we're going to have. The washing machine already has a pump in it to move the water, so we don't have to do that. And the way the pipe sits into the ABS that runs out of the house, we have air space around those hoses, so we don't have to worry about suction and a siphoning effect. If you had a sealed system where your washing machine lines are all threaded together or glued together, and there's no open spaces, you're going to have to add in a part called an air gap vent. And all that does is allow airflow to follow the water down the pipes so that the seal doesn't create a siphon and suck water back into your washing machine. We don't have to have one of those on this system. And another part you might need to have that we don't need for this system that's really common in gray water systems is a three-way valve. So if you have sealed pipes running through your system, what the valve does is allows you to switch from one exit to another one. So you'll have your wastewater going out one pipe, and it'll come into a three-way valve. This way will go to your septic, this way will go out into your gray water disposal field, and it just has a little lever that allows you to switch where the water is going. If you do have to install something like that, you need to make sure that it's in a really accessible location. They will look for that in your plans, and if you have a permitted system, they will look for it upon inspection, and you have to be able to show that you can access that. Alternatively, you can get solenoid valves, which actually get wired into an electrical switch, and you flip the switch and it changes the direction of your water disposal flow. If you're going to install something like that, you need to consult an electrician. So our system is much more simple. We don't have to have any of those devices. So the final thing on your delivery line, so past the clean out, somewhere along your line, is you're going to want a check valve. So a check valve is just a one-way valve that allows water to flow one direction and not flow back the other. So if you can see, this one's for a non-pressurized system, and it just has a little flap inside the valve. So the water can flow this direction, and the flap just sits loosely, But if the water tries to flow back this way, it pushes the flap closed. And what this does is, should your disposal field ever completely flood, or should your yard ever flood and water starts coming back up the disposal pipe, this valve will close off and prevent it from coming back into your house. A couple more things here. For any threaded bits that you might have, like we have the threaded bit here on our clean out, you're going to want to use some kind of silicone tape. This is really fancy blue tape. It's just a little bit thicker, but you can get rolls of this at any hardware store. You're going to wrap it around the threads, and it just kind of creates a no-leak seal on any threaded parts. It doesn't glue it in place. You can still remove this later. It'll just be a little harder. And another thing you might have noticed is that each one of these pipes has a bit of a flange on the end, and what this allows you to do is fit the end of your pipe inside and glue them together. For PVC, you can use red hot blue glue. It's very popular. You don't have to have a primer and then the glue itself. And then for ABS, or to glue PVC and ABS together, you're going to want more specific all-purpose cement. Again, you can ask anyone at your local hardware store and they should be able to help you with this. So other than that, we have a piece of 4-inch PVC pipe. A lot of times it's really great to have a piece of perforated PVC. We're going to drill a couple holes in this one, or you can buy PVC that already has holes drilled in it. You're going to lay this in your disposal trench, and what it does is it creates a cavity where the water will be able to evenly disperse throughout your trench, so it's not all just pouring out in one spot. And then the last thing is we have this cardboard paper, which is actually for septic leach lines. It's called leach line paper. And what this does is, when we put our perforated pipe in our trench, we're going to surround it with drain rock, but then we're going to fill the trench the rest of the way with soil. And when we put the soil in, we don't want it to immediately fall down into the gravel and back up all of the pipes. So you put a layer of leach line paper in between the drain rock and the soil, and what that does is it allows the plant roots to come down, grow into your soil for a while, and start holding that all in place. This will biodegrade. There are types of material that you can put in that do not biodegrade. I don't recommend it. And in a pinch, you could easily use just some layers of cardboard in place of this. And eventually this will disintegrate, and then the plant roots will prevent the soil from going down into your drain rock and blocking up your pipes. So I was going to say, this is actually really perfect that you wanted to use your washing machine, because in Butte County, if you're not in a municipality, if you're not in a town, you don't have to have a permit to set up a gray water system for your washing machine.
Right.
What the county really wants to see is that you have a plan for how you're going to switch it back to septic. Because gray water systems are nice, but some of us do mechanic work, some of us do different types of things, and if your body or your clothing is soiled with some kind of petrochemicals, gas, oil, they want to know that you can switch it back to septic very easily and not have that running out into your yard.
Right.
When we draw up the plans for your system, it's nice to show where the pipes are running in your little sketched out design. Because even for unpermitted systems, you're going to want to take your drawing of your plans into environmental health, and they attach those plans to your property documents. And that way, if you ever sell your house or give it away to someone, the new owners know where that system is, so that they can locate it and not disturb it.
Right.
So you're going to need a 2-scale drawing of your house and your gray water system. And if there are any components of concern that are going to be near it, you're going to want to include those in your drawing. If you have any streams or creeks on your property, if you know where your septic tank is, it's nice to include those if they're going to be anywhere near your system, so that the enforcing agency can just look very quickly and see that you've taken that into account.
Okay.
Our to scale drawing, you can get a scaled image of your house a lot of different places. Either you can go out and take the measurements yourself and then decide on your scale. You can go on Google Earth, and a lot of times you can zoom in enough to where you can just trace the lines of your house on a piece of paper and just take note of what scale it is on the computer. Here we just measured it because we spent a lot of time at the corner of your house, so it was easier to do it that way. So you need to know where your house is. You also always want to include which direction is north, so everyone can tell which way you're oriented. It just helps you be able to reference things very quickly. And you also need to include your scale so that they know what sizes you're working with and how to translate that when they're determining if your specs are appropriate. You're going to want to include some of those specific components that we talked about when we were talking about the parts for the system. If you have a three-way valve, you're probably going to want to note where that is so they know to check and make sure it's accessible when they come to inspect. You don't necessarily have to include the clean out, but maybe that's something you mention to them when they come so that they know that you included that. And then the check valve, you're definitely going to want to put where that is on the line so that they can go in and check and make sure you install that appropriately too. But other than that, as far as these site plans are concerned, it's really just geared towards your disposal field. So we had about 5.5 feet of piping coming down the side of the house. And again, it's not absolutely necessary that they have all of your plumbing information, but this is also a great reference for you to have later on too, and to pass along with the property. So then we want to draw in our disposal field over here, and we have 7.5 feet. And then the one other thing that you want to do besides this is you want to have a cutaway, like a side view of what's going to be in the trench. So for a permitted system disposal field, you're going to need to have 3 inches of drain rock underneath your pipe. You're going to place your perf pipe, and then you need enough drain rock to again cover the pipe with 2 inches above. And then what we're going to have is that layer of leach line paper that we talked about. And then you're going to have your soil or mulch on top of that.
Okay.
And having a little cutaway sketch like this. So for a permitted system in town, this total depth here is going to have to be a minimum of 15 inches. Because then you're going to have 10 inches of mulch or soil or whatever it is that you want to plant in on top of it. So 15 inches total. If this is a smaller pipe, you know, this is for a 4-inch piece of PVC. You can get slightly smaller pipe depending on how much discharge of water you're going to have, but definitely oversizing everything, if at all possible, ensures that you have an emergency, 6 loads of laundry to do today, you still have enough room and you're not going to back up or overload your system. Definitely just make note of your dimensions here. That way they can do the math pretty quickly. 7.5 feet. And then over here, I'm really practicing my drawing skills today. we're going to make a note that this is our 2-inch PVC check valve.
Okay.
And this would also be an opportunity, say if we had a septic tank, you know, much closer, this would be a great opportunity to also draw in some lines, you know, saying, here's my 5-foot setback from my septic. We don't have that, so we don't have to worry about it. So yeah, just making sure you have everything denoted that's going to be near it. Anything that requires a setback, make sure to include that. Make sure it's to scale. And then do your little side cutaway of your pipe in your trench.
Okay.
Prior to doing your scaled drawing, though, when you're doing your planning, and also something you're going to want to submit, is you can get a paper called an as-built. You should be able to just go into your local county office, their building department, and request it for your parcel number. And it just shows your house to scale and then where your septic tank and leach lines go. And what they want you to do is wherever your disposal field for your gray water system is, they want you to kind of sketch that into the as-built to scale, and then they'll include that in the plans. The as-built will show you the scale that they used and just follow what they already have going on it. And that's something you just resubmit to them just so it lives with the property documents and people can quickly reference that. You know, even if you live somewhere where you don't have to submit any of this to your county or state to be able to install a gray water system, it's good to have even just for your own records.
Right.
I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah. Okay.
So what about any other utilities that run through your yard, maybe gas or electrical lines?
They're all on the other side of the house.
Okay.
And water runs in through the gable, so it's up in the attic. The power runs into the gable as well.
Okay.
Right up into the attic.
All right, perfect.
So everything's away.
All right. And that's another resource that you can call if you're not sure if you live in town, or maybe any of the markers saying where your utilities run in your yard. You can dial 811. And the utility companies will actually come out to your property and mark where their lines run so that you can safely dig in your yard.
Right, and you do want to do that because I almost cut through a gas line digging a post right by my gate, an existing house I used to have.
So when you're going to drill through a wall to run a pipe out of your house, there are a couple things you want to consider as well. There are going to be 2x4 studs. There's going to be a little bit of your foundation coming up behind this wall. And there also are likely to be electrical lines for outlets. So when we do the install, we're going to show you removing a small panel of the wall so that you can safely drill a hole through and not worry about drilling through any of those things in the process. If you're not comfortable with light construction work like that, I highly recommend calling someone because it can be dangerous to just start drilling exploratory holes if you're not sure what you're going to encounter.
Yeah, and as a carpenter and remodel carpenter of many years, I would say that it's always cheaper to make the hole on the inside. The outside is harder to put back together than the inside. The inside is just usually sheetrock and plaster. The outside is siding and trim work and all that kind of stuff. So, anyway.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do is there's a piece of floor trim running across there. I need to cut through it about 12 inches, something like that, so I can get into this piece of plywood right here, or paneling. And then beyond that paneling is going to be sheetrock. Then we're going to run into 2x4. Then we're going to keep on going because we're going outside. This is going to be a pipe running up right beside here.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's make noise. So there it is. See, we have a stud right there. I'm going to get a drill bit, and I'm going to go right into there and go out the other side. And then I'm going to go out there and see what I did. And here we go. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start cutting the hole on the other side. Then I'll come out here and finish it off. But then I'm going to use my jigsaw to get a bigger one. So I got a bit on here and I'm going to go through. I'm going to go through this. It's this felt. It's kind of a felt material. I'm going to go through that. I'm going to hit the plywood that's on the outside and go through that. Hopefully it'll work really well. Okay, now I'm going to go on the outside. Okay. So this is popping out like this. Is that the way it's going to go?
So I think what we want to do here,
because we're going to go, right? We're not going to go, we're going to go right, sweep down.
But I think we're going to put the clean out here.
Okay.
Because then we have the clean out for this line. Okay. And then that'll come out and it'll still be up high enough that when you put your patio in, it won't be.
So it seems to me that we want to go ahead, we'll drill this hole big enough so that this can actually go into the building.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to get it as close as I can
Mm-hmm.
to, this, as opposed to way out here. I mean, if we can get it in a little bit more, that would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is going to make it easier to cut. This right here, like this. Okay. Now I think I'll get a little piece. Start putting everything together on the inside. I want this pipe to be as close as I can to this wall. So that means I'll have to change the length of the other one, which is no big deal. None of this is glued in. And you never want to glue it in like this. If you don't know exactly what you're doing, you want to just stick it in dry. And then once you figured out everything, that's when you glue it. Okay. So what we're going to do, this is going to be the pipes coming out of the utility room to outside. I got to glue this, and I'll show you where it's going to go. Right like this. And so both those pieces are going to be glued. So I might come down like this, maybe. Actually, first thing we need to glue is this, the clean out. Okay, let's see. This is not very good stuff to smell, but and then you just squeeze it in like that.
Wow, okay.
It's in. Then okay, Janelle, here we go. I think we did it.
What you got there?
A 2-inch pipe that's going to come down here. We're going to glue it into this right here. And then I'm going to get a little block and a little block there to hold that like that. And then this thing, oh, it probably won't reach, so I won't be able to tell you unless we move this over. Yeah. So this is going to go in the top of that new one. This is where the wastewater comes out of the washer. The wastewater. Okay, here we go. Time to glue it back. Okay, what do we got here? Okay. Come on. Oh, I love getting it on me. Okay. So now what's left on the inside is to just put all the pieces back together again. You know, the exploratory hole. And that's what I'm going to do right now.
All right. So your trench is going to want to be, if you're doing a permitted system in town, they require at least 15 inches deep.
No kidding.
Yeah. For this system, since we don't technically fall under those same parameters in the county, 12 inches deep is usually recommended. Yeah, so from each corner we're going to come back about 7.5 feet. Hold this for you. What does that look like?
Big trench.
Well, the nice thing is, though, is that this is all going to be completely filled back in. You'll be able to walk over it. You'll be able to plant on top of it if you want. The nice thing is that's the difference between the gray water and the septic, right? So your septic leach lines, you can't plant trees near it. You can't grow stuff near it because they're going to encroach in those leach lines. With a gray water system, that's what you want. You want as many roots going in there to take up that water as possible. It doesn't have to run all the way just to make sure you got your corner where you want it. So this is just to make sure we have a nice straight line, so when we start trenching, we don't have to worry that our pipe isn't going to fit into the trench when we want to glue it and insert it. It's nice to do some kind of measuring where you can make sure that everything is going to fit together properly.
Right. Yeah, we're running downhill.
Yeah, no, don't say that.
Okay, glued.
Glued.
So glued, 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 glued. Okay, I'll go. So hopefully No, not hopefully. It's going to work.
All right, so we've done all of our excavation for the gray water system. We've connected the pipe coming from the washing machine and going out into our trench. And now we're going to get all the parts together for the disposal field, which we have over here behind us. So just to make sure we're noting this, the ABS is exposed on the outside of the house here. If you have a piece of pipe that's going to be exposed to the sun or the elements, you can paint it with UV resistant latex paint to protect it. ABS can be exposed. Ideally, you don't want it in the direct sun. But Susan and John Michael are actually going to be doing some work in this area and putting some patio in. So for now, we've put the ABS where it's going to be out of their way. And they can always reconfigure it if they need to later, if they'd like it to be in the slab or if they build something around it to protect it. So we have a little bit of a grade on this pipe that's going to the disposal field. The disposal field itself you want to have as level as possible because you want the water to evenly spread across the bottom of the trench. You don't want it all to pool to one end. So we have this 4-inch PVC pipe. And you can buy perforated pipe. All it is the exact same pipe that we have here, but it has holes pre-drilled in it. So if you want to make your work a little easier, a little faster, you can buy perforated pipe. This is actually a piece we had from another gray water installation. So we're just going to drill our own holes in it. Have a drill, very large drill bit. This is a 1/2 inch. We're going to mark out where our holes go. You want them 6 inches apart. And we're going to cut it to length and put it in the trench. So one thing you want to remember when you're trying to drill a hole this big is that this drill bit doesn't have a very pointy end. And if you try to just start the hole with this one, it's probably going to slide all over the place. It might be kind of difficult. You could probably do it with this PVC because it's soft, so you can kind of dig into it pretty quickly. But we're going to go with a slightly smaller drill bit to do a pilot hole, and that way it'll be much faster with the larger drill bit. And you can see it's really soft, so this goes really quickly. All right, one more pass with the larger drill bit and we have our perforated pipe. So what happens really often when you start to excavate fairly large areas in your yard is even if your utilities and everything have been marked, a lot of times you're going to encounter things you weren't expecting. In our area, big rocks are something you encounter frequently, and also big roots. Since we're putting this system in after the fact, there's already been some plants and trees put in place in the area we want to dispose of our water. And as you can see, we encountered a very large root from this mulberry tree over here. And after a little bit of exploration, rather than excavate this whole giant piece of root from this tree, we decided to just extend our trench this way a few inches to compensate for the space that we lost by leaving the root in the trench.
Oh gosh, darn it. Do we have enough?
So we're adding in our backflow check valve. We wanted to have it as close to the trench and the disposal field as possible. That way, if this ever needs to be snaked, you can get all the way to this. You do not want to stick a snake through this because when you try to pull it back, it's going to catch and it's just going to yank that shut and you're never going to get your snake back. So knowing where this is extremely important. And we want to put it back here so that the majority of this line can be snaked if need be. So this is going to go right about here, and we have this lovely little irrigation box that's going to go over top of it so that if anything ever happens, you don't have to dig up your whole line to be able to fix it. You can get these in all sorts of shapes and sizes. We just kind of wanted to minimize things that are going to be poking up out of the yard, so we got the smallest one we could. Always make sure you know which way the water's supposed to flow, because if you put this in backwards, you are going to immediately back up your line. So we can see the water will push it open this way. And then again, if water tries to flow back, it's going to shut this and seal it. And it helps, there's a flow line that's actually on the valve. So just double and triple check that before you glue anything. So this will fit on here like this. And then we're going to tie into our line over here after we cut a pipe. And then your irrigation box is going to sit down over top. You can bury it as deep as you want. Just make sure that you can get to this lid, because this is how you're going to open it up to be able to look in there. For this particular valve, there's not a lot to see. This is just going to hold space around it. So you could come and pull this up out of here and not have to dig a big old hole and possibly break your line when you're trying to get in and change it out if you need to. All right, we need to cut a pipe. We want to make sure we get the right length and don't cut it too long. So 6 feet 3 inches. To my happy dance. You don't get to see the happy dance. The world does not need to see the happy dance.
I disagree.
Yeah, the world needs to see happy dance.
All right, this needs to be cut a little bit shorter to accommodate that coming in. So remember, when you're measuring for the height of where your fittings go in and the pipe that's going to go with that your pipes only go in this far. So for the length of your pipe, you want to make sure to add that extra, I think it's about a 1/2 inch, because they're not going to go in any farther than that, but you need that extra height or else you're going to be off. One more cut. Well, that's going to nest in there just like that. I might need one more cut, John Michael. Or I might not. This might be...
Just perfect.
So before we do anything else, we're going to check level. Make sure we didn't mess anything up adding all these pieces in. Make sure it's not too far off. We're going to be putting some rocks in here just to hold space around the pipe, and then we'll put our leach line paper on top. That'll keep the soil from coming in and just kind of packing in around the pipe until we can get some plant roots growing in here that are going to hold that all together. So we want to do a rock party. So you can use gravel if you want to. Just put down a really thin layer. This soil is already very gravelly and it's going to drain really well. So we're just going to put some slightly larger rocks around the pipe. It'll hold it in place. And really this will just give us a level surface for the leach line paper. So if you're doing a permitted system in town, or if you're doing a system that requires some kind of inspection, they're probably not going to want you to use large rocks like this, but if you're doing a permitted system in town, you're going to want to get drain rock, which is about 2 to 3 inch sized rocks. You need 3 inches in the bottom of your trench, and then you'd put your perforated pipe on top of that, fill to the top of the perforated pipe, and then have at least 2 inches covering the top of your pipe before you put your leach line paper. Look at you, Susan.
Your bucket of rocks, my liege.
It's really just to protect the pipe and make sure it can continue draining, make sure it doesn't back up, and it makes sure that the soil from the top doesn't just immediately cave in down into your gravel and back your system up. The plant roots are going to start growing in and hold that soil in place, and the leach line paper is going to break down probably within a year or two.
Should we take a measurement?
Yeah, we added just a couple extra inches on there, so. And you can buy leach line paper in all sorts of different widths. This is 36 inch, but but you can also get 24-inch because those are pretty standard sizes for leach lines, which is what you typically use this for. I would say in a pinch, if you're putting up a system that doesn't need to be inspected, using some light-duty cardboard would do about the same thing, and it would probably save you a little bit of money. I'll cut a little slit to go around the pipe over here. One thing I will say is it's really important to keep your workspace clear. We're doing a poor job of that today, but... Alright, I'm gonna just cut out a little... Come on. There we go. Cut out a little flap to go around the pipe. All right, so we have everything in place. Before we bury it, we want to do a test run. We want to see the water filling the trench, make sure nothing's going to break or come apart, because if we wait until we bury it and there's a problem, it might be a while before we notice it.
Okay.
Try not to actually run gray water through your system the first time. Try to make sure it's clean water going through, so if there is a break, you're not getting exposed to any of that.
How's that?
If you can get a hose to do a test run of your system, it's probably a better idea. You have a little more control over a hose, whereas if you hit the rinse cycle on your washing machine and something crazy happens, you might not be able to turn it off as quickly. I hear it. It's coming! So you can see, since we kept the bottom of the trench really level, more of the water is going to come out the end of the pipe, but that's totally fine because it's all going to backflow because the bottom of the trench is level. So all this water is going to fill up nice and evenly, and that gives us a whole lot of surface area for it to soak in, so we don't have to worry about it overflowing our trench. Yay! So we're going to go back inside and just talk a little bit about what you should and shouldn't put into your gray water system. You definitely want to make sure that you're not putting anything into there that's going to harm the plants. And there are a couple things to look for on cleaning products that will help you determine that. A couple words that you can look for when you're looking at cleaning products is bioavailable versus biodegradable. Biodegradable means that it'll break down in the ecosystem, but biodegradable can contain some harsher chemicals like bleaches and salts, which technically will break down in the environment, but in a gray water system they can be really detrimental to plants if they build up in the soil, and they can also cut down on your microbial load, which will stop the activity that helps balance the pH and keep your system functional. And again, anything that says bioavailable, because that implies that plants can take it up right now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to go through a degradation process to be able to be used in the environment. One rule of thumb when you're choosing cleaning agents, whether for your laundry machine or even just for cleaning your bathroom, is there are a lot of powdered products available. Often these will have bleach and or salts in them, so a good rule of thumb is just to avoid any sort of powdered cleaning products. Salts aren't necessarily the end of the world, but because they can be flushed out of your system. But if you happen to just absolutely need to use salts for some reason, I would recommend making sure you take a hose out and just kind of use some clean, fresh water to flush your system every once in a while and get those salts moving through. Something a lot of people don't think about is how your water is treated as well. Unfortunately, if it's subsurface, there's not a lot we can do about chlorination that comes from the treatment of municipal water. So when it comes to laundry, avoid bleach, avoid baking soda. You can use vinegar because of the salt. Baking soda is still a salt, so it can build up in your soil. Around here especially, we have really heavy soil that tends to percolate much more slowly versus if you're down in the valley near the rivers, you're going to have silt, which is probably going to drain a lot better. Or up in the mountains here, a lot of places you have decomposed granite, which is really sandy and it's going to drain really fast. Those areas, if you're thoroughly flushing your system in between uses, you would probably be pretty safe using some light salt products every once in a while. When it comes to shower and bath stuff, honestly, most of those are fairly pH balanced, and a lot of them are heavily diluted because they have to be safe for our skin and hair. And so when it comes to those types of products, I wouldn't really worry too much about what it is you use. And around here we have the benefit that in the wintertime we get pretty heavy rainfall, which is going to flush out your system for you. It's an open system, you know, it's not closed off. If you do get extremely heavy rain or if you're in a flood zone, you absolutely want to turn off your gray water system and divert it just into your septic during the winter time, because you don't want the outside water flooding up out of your trench and pushing that out. As far as bath products go, if you use a lot of Epsom salt, again, it's a salt, you're going to want to avoid doing that often. Magnesium salts like that can actually be good for your plants in small doses, but again, everything in moderation. If you really have to use bleach, you know, a lot of city water is going to be chlorinated. Some of these things are unavoidable. Right. And another thing you can consider to kind of help work this stuff through your system is using a little bit of compost tea and just go out and water your gray water system every once in a while. That'll get the biology going. That'll help break down some of these chemicals and materials. So it's really similar to like when people tell you to, you know, flush a little bit of peat moss down your toilet for your septic system and things like that. That adjusts the pH. It acidifies your system. Oh. And so what happens is that makes a more conducive environment for microbes. They like it pretty acidic, as do most plants. They tend to lean a little more on the acidic side. Soaps can tend to be alkaline. So if you do start to notice any discoloration in your plants, I'd suggest giving it a good flush, maybe adding some compost or worm castings or something to it to put some biology back in, and you should be fine. Vinegar cleaning products are great for that same reason. They're very acidic, and some of them, like apple cider vinegar, are biologically active themselves. So they'll add some biology and adjust the pH for you. I think that's pretty much it for cleaning products. Really, just avoid borax, avoid baking soda, and avoid bleach. If at all possible, try to avoid things that say antibacterial on them. And it's not that you can't use these things. Say once a month you want to use bleach on your laundry. You just need to give it all a good flush out. Just switch it back to your septic system for that part.
So anything with bleach, so you would be avoiding like Tide and different things like that. Yeah, you definitely want to avoid bleach. Chlorine in general really isn't great to put out into the environment. Chlorine can bind to certain compounds in the environment and create chlorinated organic compounds, which are extremely detrimental not only to us but to other things in the environment too. So right.
1, 2, 3.
I could take my clothes off. Here, honey, here's some extra stuff.
That sounds like a good one. Okay, give me a big clap now. All right, thank you.
So what we're going to do is do a load of wash here. And this is our old washing machine. We're going to use Dr. Bronner's.
Laundry is exciting. It's always good to have a nice change of clothes that are clean.
Yes, so.
A lot of people out there can do those kind of things, and you could save hundreds of gallons if you bring the shower into it and the vanity into it. And this is a simple solution. And we're going to have to do it. Eventually we're going to have to do it because we're going to be running out of water if we don't.
And, you know, I have to say too, keeping a defensible space around your property also means keeping the plants that are there green. And so using your water again to be able to water those plants keeps a defensible space and helps with fire suppression as well. And so that's really an important part of keeping the gray water systems useful around your property.
Right, right.
You can do it. We did it.
You can do it, yes.
I love you so much, I can't wait to get back to the life I love. I love you so much, I can't wait to get back to the life I love. I love you so much, I can't wait to get back to the life I love. Well, out on the road, or in between, the journey's the same, and I'm